It is 2026, and Nevada is powering ahead with an infrastructure transformation that will change the face of the desert state. Sin City continues to raise the bar with its newest entertainment venue, this time a 700-foot guitar towering over the skyline. A controversial new stadium is also set to rise on the Vegas Strip. But the developments don't stop here. Reno is stepping up to rival Vegas with a resort of its own, and the state's energy infrastructure is getting a revamp. But the most important megaproject of all is Nevada's push to create better water infrastructure and finally reduce the state's dependency on Lake Mead. So what exactly are they building? Stay tuned as we bring you the construction update on the biggest megaprojects in Nevada in 2026, starting with walk past the construction walls on the Las Vegas Strip today, and you can see the steel skeleton of a guitar rising story by story into the Vegas sky. As of early 2026, 36 of the planned 42 floors of the Hard Rock Guitar Hotel Las Vegas are complete. Blue-tinted glass panels are climbing the structure, floor by floor, giving the 660-foot tower the shimmer it will carry for decades. The old Mirage Tri-Tower behind it has been gutted entirely. In its place are new rooms, expanded corridors, and a casino floor nearly double the size of the one it replaces. By the time this opens in late 2027, there will be roughly 3,700 rooms on this site and a gaming floor stretching across 175,000 square feet. This is the largest active construction project on the Las Vegas Strip, and the total bill is expected to land close to $4.3 billion. But to understand what's being built here, you have to understand what's being replaced. The Mirage opened in 1989 as the most expensive casino ever built at the time, and it didn't just change Las Vegas, it invented the modern version of it. Before the Mirage, the Strip was aging, faded, caught between its Rat Pack past and an uncertain future. That's when a $630 million mega resort gave the city a new life. It immediately became an iconic destination with a 54-foot artificial volcano that erupted every hour after dark. The volcano became one of the most recognizable landmarks in America. For 35 years, it became a reference point for the city and all the hustle it has to offer. But after a long reign, the Mirage is giving way to a different entertainment venue. The Mirage was sold to MGM Resorts and then to Seminole Tribe in late 2022 for over $1 billion. For the following 18 months, the hotel operated as is before finally closing on July 17, 2024. The volcano was demolished just a month later in August 2024. That's when construction on the guitar had officially begun. The question now is whether this guitar can carry a similar cultural weight to the Mirage. The success of similar projects in the last decade are reason for optimism. In October 2019, the Seminole Tribe of Florida opened the world's first guitar-shaped hotel at their Hard Rock property in Hollywood, Florida. It was a 450-foot, 36-story tower built to resemble a Gibson Les Paul, with 30,000 linear feet of programmable LED lighting wrapping the entire facade. Light cannons extend from the rooftop, projecting beams 20,000 feet into the South Florida sky, mimicking the neck of a guitar reaching upward. The Hollywood property became an immediate landmark, not just for the casino, but for the entire region. It hosts more than 95 events a year, draws visitors from across the country, and fundamentally changed what people thought a casino hotel could look like. The Las Vegas version will stand more than 210 feet taller, and its development is now visible from all corners of the Strip. Once completed, it will carry 6 illuminated light beams off the rooftop, functioning as guitar strings stretched across the sky. The blue glass exterior is being designed to shift in appearance depending on the light. At street level, the former volcano site becomes the tower's base, positioned directly on Las Vegas Boulevard where foot traffic is densest. The Venetian sits to the north, Treasure Island to the northwest. This location is arguably the most prominent real estate on the entire Strip, and it's been sitting behind construction walls for over a year. The Hard Rock that opens here won't just be another hotel on the Strip. The company operates over 300 venues across nearly 80 countries, But the Las Vegas Guitar Hotel is the flagship. It aims to match the history of a casino that defined an era on the most watched stretch of road in the entertainment world. And Hard Rock is already moving beyond it. Last month, the company announced an $850 million resort in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It will be positioned beside San Juan Bay with views of the Atlantic, with construction set to begin in mid-2026 and opening targeted for 2029. It will be the first integrated casino ever built in Puerto Rico, designed around the island's musical heritage with a recording studio, live event venues, and work from local artists woven throughout the property. Hard Rock is building an empire, city by city, and Las Vegas will be its crown. Just a short walk down the strip from the Guitar Hotel's construction site, another landmark from the past has made way for something just as ambitious, this time not a casino, but a ballpark. The Tropicana opened in 1957. Frank Sinatra performed there. The Rat Pack made it a second home. For nearly 7 decades, it stood at the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana Avenue as one of the last surviving links to the original Las Vegas, the city before the mega resorts, before the themed casinos, before the Strip became what it is today. In April 2024, it closed. In October, the 2 hotel towers were imploded, and by May 2025, construction crews were already drilling foundation piles into the cleared site. What's rising in its place is a $2 billion baseball stadium, which looks like nothing else in professional sports. The design comes from Danish architect Bjarke Ingels, whose firm BIAG has spent nearly a decade working with the Athletics on finding them a new home. The structure they've built for Las Vegas is nicknamed the Armadillo. 5 massive overlapping shells wrapped in square metal panels, each one shaped like a baseball pennant, curving and layering over the playing field like scales on an animal's back. The metal exterior shimmers in the desert sun during the day and catches the neon of the Strip at night. Every angle of direct sunlight is blocked by the shells. Soft, indirect light filters through north-facing windows and washes the field below. Then there's the glass wall. Facing Las Vegas Boulevard, the entrance to the ballpark is a cable net glass facade, the largest of its kind in the world when complete, through which fans inside will have an unobstructed view of the Strip, with the New York Hotel skyline sitting directly in frame. It's a ballpark designed to make the city part of the game. Inside, the seating has been configured to bring 33,000 fans closer to the action than any other MLB venue. The smallest foul territory in the league, the closest seats to home plate. And escaping Oakland is exactly what this stadium represents. But reaching this point was not easy. Since owner John Fisher took full control of the franchise in 2005, the Athletics have proposed 9 different stadium sites across the Bay Area. The last was Howard Terminal, a waterfront shipping port where the A's spent years securing $750 million in infrastructure grants before Fisher walked away from the deal entirely in 2024. Oakland sued, but the franchise left anyway, spending 2025 through at least 2027 playing at a minor league park in West Sacramento, while Las Vegas gets ready. When Fisher broke ground at the Tropicana site in June 2025, he declared, "We are Vegas team." However, not everyone was convinced, largely because of Fisher's track record of abandoning multiple locations. The Guardian ran a piece calling it a debacle in the desert. It was criticism rooted in Fisher's ability to secure enough funding for the new stadium. At the time of groundbreaking, the A's had secured roughly $855 million toward a project that had already grown from $1.5 billion to $1.75 billion and would later rise to $2 billion. Fisher's primary asset, his family's stake in Gap Inc., had seen its value fall sharply. Analysts pointed out he likely couldn't personally cover a billion-dollar gap, even if he chose to. For Oakland fans who had watched 9 stadium proposals collapse over 2 decades, this looked like history finding a new location to repeat itself. Then the pieces started falling into place. Goldman Sachs and U.S. Bank committed a $300 million construction loan. Aramark secured a 20-year food and beverage contract and took a minority ownership stake in the team. The Fisher family pledged up to $1.1 billion of their own capital. Personal seat licenses are now being sold to fill the remaining gap. By December 2025, A's Vice Chairman Sandy Dean stood before the Las Vegas Stadium Authority and said the financing was complete. As of February 2026, the A's have spent $300 million, foundation work is finished, and the public's $380 million hasn't even been drawn yet. The question stopped being whether this stadium gets built. It became when. Bowl steelwork begins in March 2026, with the roof structure following in June. There's a concrete opening date, which is the start of the 2028 MLB season. And for the first time in a long time, it feels real. The ballpark occupies 9 acres of the 35-acre Tropicana site. The remaining 26 acres belong to Bally's Corporation, which announced its own plans in September 2025 for a $1.19 billion resort wrapping around the stadium on 3 sides. 2 luxury hotel towers with 3,000 rooms combined, a 2,500-seat theater, 500,000 square feet of retail, dining, and entertainment, and a casino with direct access to the ballpark. Construction on the first elements of Bally's project, a shared utility plant and a 7-level parking garage running from the Strip to the stadium entrance, needs to be underway by January 2027 to meet opening day. The hotel towers come later, once the ballpark is finished. When fully built out, this 35-acre corner of the Strip will function as a self-contained entertainment district, the first in Las Vegas, built specifically around a professional sports team. The Golden Knights already proved the city could support NHL hockey. The Raiders proved it could fill an NFL stadium. The A's are betting it can do the same for baseball on the most watched stretch of road in America, inside a building that looks like it grew out of the desert itself. Las Vegas is no longer auditioning as a sports city. It already has the teams it needs. Now it's building the infrastructure to match. That energy isn't staying on the Strip, 300 miles north, in a city that has spent decades living in Las Vegas's shadow. Reno is making its own statement, and it starts with a shovel in the ground at the Grand Sierra Resort. For most of its existence, Reno has been defined by what it isn't. It isn't Las Vegas. The casinos are smaller, the hotels shorter, the shows less spectacular. When the Nevada gaming industry exploded in the second half of the 20th century, the money and the spectacle gravitating south was so complete that Reno's own tourism authority found itself studying Las Vegas as a benchmark. They were surveying whether Las Vegas visitors could be convinced to come north instead. The gap between the two cities was never really about size. It was about investment. Las Vegas attracted it. Reno watched it leave. That started changing when the tech industry came to northern Nevada. Tesla, Google, and Apple came in with their data centers and gigafactories filling the flatlands east of the city. The population grew along with the city's tax base, and with that growth came a question the city hadn't seriously asked in decades. What does Reno actually build for itself? The answer is taking shape on the northwest corner of the Grand Sierra Resort's parking lot, a patch of asphalt that sat completely unchanged from 1998 until September 30th, 2025, when real estate billionaire Alex Meruelo put a shovel in the ground. The Grand Sierra Resort Arena is a $435 million, 300,000 square foot venue designed by global architecture firm Gensler. It is built to seat more than 10,000 people and is planned to host 95 events annually. It will also become the permanent home of the University of Nevada Wolfpack men's basketball team, who have been playing in the same building since 1983. It is the first major arena built in northern Nevada in over 2 decades, and it is the single largest private capital investment in Reno's history. Alex Meruelo bought the Grand Sierra in 2012 and started working on a billion-dollar master plan. The sports arena represents only the Phase 1 of the greater development and will cost $435 million. Work will simultaneously begin on Phase 2, the centerpiece of which is an 800-room hotel tower. This will be surrounded by a lakefront golf facility, a community ice center large enough to host a minor league hockey team, a central plaza, and 300 affordable housing units built specifically for the workforce the whole development will need to run. Reno generated $5.2 billion in tourism impact in 2024 and drew 3.8 million visitors to Washoe County. These numbers have been quietly growing even as national hotel occupancy declined. With Vegas tourism posting a downward trend, Reno's tourism authority sees an opportunity. In late 2025, their CEO noted that Reno Tahoe was holding its own against its sister city to the south. Construction broke ground on September 30th, 2025, with Wolfpack head coach Steve Alford in attendance, a shovel in his hand. General contractor Martin Harris Construction, a Nevada firm that has been building in the state for nearly 50 years, moved onto the site within weeks. And then they found something. Early site work turned up contaminated soil. While it was not at dangerous levels, it was enough to require a formal remediation plan to be filed with state regulators. Construction paused. Crews were reallocated to other areas of the project while the paperwork moved through. It's exactly the kind of early-stage discovery that quietly derails projects with thinner margins or less committed ownership. Meruelo's team filed the plan, got clearance, and resumed. The construction for now has only reached a parking garage. The arena structure follows through 2026 and into 2027, with completion targeted in time for the Wolfpack's 2027 basketball season. The economic projections for the full build-out run as high as $1.8 billion in direct impact over 28 years. Reno's tourism is set to reap the benefits from a parking lot that gathered dust for 27 years, but is now a construction site. If it succeeds, Reno might no longer feel the need to be compared to Las Vegas to make sense on its own terms. But Nevada's transformation in this era isn't just about where people come to be entertained. Some of the most consequential construction happening right now is in places most people will never visit, out in the high desert of Humboldt County, where a project buried inside an ancient supervolcano could fundamentally change how America powers itself. 60 miles northwest of Winnemucca, Nevada, in a stretch of high desert so remote that the nearest town is a dot on a map, there is a crater left by a supervolcano that last erupted 17 million years ago, the McDermott Caldera. Over those millions of years, volcanic activity concentrated lithium in the clay sediment near the surface in quantities that didn't seem possible until geologists started measuring. What they found at a place called Thacker Pass is the largest confirmed lithium deposit anywhere on Earth. The United States currently produces less than 1% of the global lithium supply. Almost all of it comes from a single operation in Esmeralda County, Nevada, a mine that has been running since 1966. All the remaining lithium is mined in Australia, Chile, or South America, and the overwhelming majority of it is refined in China. That dependence has been building for decades. At Thacker Pass, there is now a serious attempt to start unwinding it. Construction began in early 2023, but the project's decisive moment came on April 1st, 2025, when Lithium Americas committed fully to Phase 1. General Motors holds a 38% stake in the joint venture and has secured rights to all of Phase 1's output. The U.S. Department of Energy issued a $2.26 billion loan, the largest it has ever extended to a mining project. And in October 2025, the Trump administration restructured that loan arrangement in exchange for a 5% equity stake in both Lithium Americas and the project itself. The federal government is now a part owner of a lithium mine. What's being built is massive. Bechtel is managing a 642-acre plant complex, roughly the footprint of 500 football fields, with 600,000 square feet of processing buildings, administrative facilities, roads, and utilities. Phase 1 is designed to produce 40,000 tons of battery-grade lithium carbonate every year, which is more than 8 times the current total annual output of the entire United States. When this plant reaches full production, it will not merely supplement American lithium supply, it will fundamentally reshape it. At capacity, Thacker Pass Phase 1 alone could supply enough lithium for 800,000 electric vehicles per year. As of the end of 2025, the site had roughly 950 workers. Engineering design was 93% complete. Processing facilities were physically rising from the desert floor, with steel installation underway across multiple buildings, including the filter building, the magnesium sulfate facility, and the liquid sulfur tank structures. In January 2026, the first of nearly 100 completed pipe rack modules arrived on site. These were fabricated off-site to reduce labor hours, each one pre-fitted with pipe and cable trays, ready to be placed and bolted together at the processing plant. The remaining modules are expected through mid-year. Grid power commissioning begins in Q2 2026, with all major concrete work targeted for completion in Q3 2026. Early commissioning of individual plant systems starts before the year is out. Mechanical completion of the full Phase 1 processing plant is targeted for late 2027. The company is also planning to spend between $1.3 and $1.6 billion on construction at this single site in 2026 alone, more than the entire Grand Sierra Resort Arena costs to build, spent in a single calendar year in the middle of the Nevada desert. That workforce is about to double. Lithium Americas is targeting peak employment of 1,800 skilled tradespeople by the end of 2026. When operational, the mine itself will employ around 350 full-time staff permanently. None of this happened easily. The project was in development for nearly 20 years before the financing came together. The Fort McDermott Paiute and Shoshone tribe, whose ancestral territory sits adjacent to the site, opposed the project from the beginning, arguing the land is sacred, that water rights would be compromised, and that the environmental review failed to adequately protect the region. Multiple lawsuits followed. In July 2023, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals denied an injunction to halt construction, and the project moved forward. Lithium Americas eventually reached a private water settlement with a local rancher and committed over $5 million toward a community center for the Fort McDermott tribe. The opposition hasn't disappeared, but the legal pathway has held. There is also the question of what happens if the politics shift. The DOE loan was issued under the Biden administration. The Trump administration restructured it rather than canceled it, which signals continued federal interest. But the situation is not without uncertainty. Lithium Americas has noted its cost estimates now include projected tariff exposure for equipment sourced from Canada, China, India, the UAE, Turkey, and the EU. This is a project that cannot be insulated from geopolitics, because geopolitics is precisely why it exists. Phase 2 of Thacker Pass is already planned, a potential doubling of output contingent on Phase 1's success. If it proceeds, Thacker Pass would supply enough lithium for roughly 1 million electric vehicles annually, mined and processed entirely on American soil in a crater left by a volcano that last moved 17 million years ago. Thacker Pass is one piece of a much larger story. Nevada is in the middle of a growth surge unlike anything it has seen in decades, and that growth is showing up everywhere, including in the one place a booming state can least afford a bottleneck, its airport. It won't be long before Vegas needs to build a new airport from scratch, and it would be the single largest public works project in Nevada's history. Harry Reid International Airport opened in 1943 as a general aviation field with 3 gravel runways and a small terminal building. It was called Alamo Field. The handful of flights it handled each week served a town of roughly 8,000 people sitting in the middle of the Mojave Desert. In 2024, that same airport processed 58.4 million passengers, a record and the 3rd highest total in its history. It is the 7th busiest airport in the United States, and by aircraft movements, it ranks 5th in the world. 30 airlines fly to 159 destinations. Southwest Airlines alone accounts for over 40% of all traffic. On peak weekends, the departure hall looks less like an airport and more like an evacuation. And the airport has nowhere left to grow. Harry Reid is completely landlocked. The surrounding streets, highways, hotels, and neighborhoods have closed in on every side. There is no room for additional terminal buildings, no space to extend concourses, and no land on which to build. The airport's physical footprint is essentially fixed, and it is already operating beyond the limits it was designed for. Clark County's own projections show it hitting its absolute capacity ceiling of 63 million annual passengers by 2030. That is 4 years away. The city has known this was coming for a long time. As far back as 2000, Clark County officials quietly lobbied Congress to pass the Ivanpah Valley Airport Public Lands Transfer Act, legislation that handed the county roughly 6,000 acres of federal desert land 23 miles south of the Strip between the small towns of Jean and Primm, set aside specifically for a supplemental airport. The land sat untouched. An environmental impact statement process started in 2006 was suspended in 2010 when the financial crisis hit and Las Vegas's economy collapsed. It sat on a shelf for 15 years. On May 19, 2025, the FAA and Bureau of Land Management issued a formal notice canceling that dormant EIS and beginning an entirely new one. The Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport, SNSA, was officially back in motion. 3 public scoping meetings were held in late July. The draft EIS is expected in June 2027. A final determination comes in early 2028. Construction could begin by 2029. What they are planning to build, if the environmental review clears, is staggering. The initial layout calls for a central terminal with 153 gates and 2 runways, one 12,000 feet long, one 15,000 feet long, and 200 feet wide, which would rank among the longest civil runways in the United States, built to handle the world's largest commercial aircraft for long-haul international and cargo operations. The total site covers 6,000 acres of buildable land, with an additional 17,000-acre noise compatibility buffer surrounding it, a combined footprint approaching 36 square miles, comparable in scale to Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. The price tag is estimated between $6 billion and $14 billion, with planners acknowledging those numbers could rise further. It would be, without qualification, the single largest public works project in Nevada's history. Nothing about this is guaranteed. The EIS is a legally required yes or no process. It could surface obstacles that reshape or block the project entirely. The desert has already pushed back. The white margin penstemon, a flowering plant that exists in only 3 locations on Earth, all within the Mojave, has one of those locations inside the proposed construction zone. The desert tortoise has a protected presence on the site as well. Conservation groups have made clear they intend to engage the process fully. In the meantime, Harry Reid itself isn't waiting. With the supplemental airport a decade away at best, the airport is undergoing a modernization program in parallel. New gates, expanded concourse space at Terminals 1 and 3, a rebuilt baggage handling system, upgraded security infrastructure, and a new connection to the Boring Company's Vegas Loop Tunnel network, which began airport service in late 2025. A new, dedicated tunnel connector between the airport and the Strip is under construction with a first quarter 2026 opening targeted. These are the measures of an airport that has run out of physical space and is now engineering around its own constraints, while the long-term solution takes shape in the desert to the south. The story of Harry Reid International Airport is the story of Las Vegas itself. A city that grew faster than anyone planned for, outpaced every infrastructure projection, and is now spending billions trying to catch up with what it already became. While Nevada's airport projects wait to get off the ground, let's move to another expansion project at a site that was once described as the largest building in the world. When Tesla broke ground on Gigafactory Nevada in June 2014, Elon Musk described it as potentially the largest building in the world. The company released a rendering of the completed facility, a diamond-shaped complex roughly 3 miles long, straddling the Nevada-California border east of Reno, powered entirely by renewable energy, producing more lithium-ion batteries annually than the entire global industry had made the year before. That building has never been finished. More than a decade later, after billions of dollars of construction, Gigafactory Nevada is still only about 30% of its originally announced footprint. The building that exists is enormous. It is already one of the largest structures on Earth by floor space. But the full vision has been indefinitely deferred, quietly shelved as Tesla's priorities shifted toward vehicles, energy products, and the countless other ventures that now populate Elon Musk's business empire. What is being built right now at Sparks is something different, not the original Gigafactory vision, but a new dedicated factory built adjacent to it, purpose-built for a single product that Tesla announced in 2017, promised for 2019, and is only now approaching volume production. The Tesla Semi is a Class 8 electric truck, 500 miles of range on a single charge, 1.7 kilowatt-hours per mile, more efficient than any diesel equivalent. Megawatt charging that can restore 70% of range in 30 minutes. It is designed not just to compete with diesel freight trucks on emissions grounds, but to undercut them on operating costs, which is the only argument that moves a trucking industry running on thin margins. Tesla has been delivering small batches to early customers since late 2022. Roughly 200 units have been sold to the likes of PepsiCo, Walmart, and Costco, and are being used in real commercial operation to identify issues and refine the design. The trucks have climbed Thacker Pass loaded and have run daily freight routes with mixed reviews from operators. But now, Tesla needs to move towards volume production, and that requires a volume factory. Tesla began construction of the dedicated Semi plant in early 2023, building it directly alongside Gigafactory Nevada, rather than expanding the existing structure. The building itself was structurally complete by late 2025, main steel topped off, stamping shop finished, powder coat, and material conveyance systems installed. Through the first half of 2025, production tooling was being commissioned floor by floor. In October 2025, Tesla's VP of Vehicle Engineering confirmed on the company's Q3 earnings call that the factory was complete and the production line was being installed. Initial builds were targeted for late 2025, with the first real volume coming in the second half of 2026. At the 2025 shareholder meeting, Musk was unambiguous. We will start volume production at our Northern Nevada factory in 2026. However, Tesla has a documented history of missing production timelines. The Semi was announced for 2019, then 2020, then 2021. It has slipped so many times that some analysts stopped tracking the date and started tracking the excuse. The factory building is now real and finished. The production line is being installed. Early customers are waiting. The question of whether 2026 is the year this actually happens, or simply the next entry on a long list of missed dates, has a direct answer coming in the next few months. At full capacity, the factory can produce 50,000 semi-trucks per year, representing the single largest deployment of battery electric heavy-duty trucks in American history. Built in the Nevada desert, drawing on battery cells produced a few hundred feet away at the Gigafactory next door. A megawatt charging network of around 46 sites is being deployed nationally to support them, with stations already operating at pilot company locations across California, Nevada, Georgia, New Mexico, and Texas. The Gigafactory itself, meanwhile, remains essential to Tesla's entire North American vehicle production. The Semi factory next door is a more focused bet. One product, one factory, one deadline that has already been pushed so many times that the company has very little credibility left to spend. Nevada is building the infrastructure to power its own future, but none of it moves without electricity. Nevada needs something it has never had before: a transmission grid capable of moving electricity from one end of the state to the other. What's being built to do that is a project most Nevadans have never heard of, and it may be the most consequential infrastructure in the state's history. Nevada receives more solar energy per square mile than almost anywhere in the country. However, the state also has a geography problem. Most of its best renewable energy resources sit in the remote high desert of the center and south. Even with geothermal reserves that have barely been touched and sitting on one of the greatest untapped renewable corridors in the Western Hemisphere, there's a complicated problem. There is no transmission infrastructure capable of moving large-scale power from where Nevada generates it to where Nevada needs it. GreenLink is being built to change that. The project consists of 2 lines. GreenLink West runs 472 miles from Las Vegas north to Yerington, along the western edge of the state. GreenLink North runs 235 miles from Yerington east to Ely. Together, they complete a triangle connecting to the existing One Nevada line that already links Ely back to Las Vegas, forming a 525 kilovolt loop around the entire state. The combined capacity of the two lines is up to 5,000 megawatts, enough to power 5 million homes. But getting this done has been expensive. When NV Energy first proposed the GreenLink project, the combined cost for both lines was estimated at $2.5 billion. That number held for several years while the project worked through permitting and federal environmental review. By the time GreenLink West received final federal approval in September 2024, the estimate had grown to $4.2 billion, nearly double the original figure, driven by inflation, supply chain costs, and the complexity of threading high-voltage infrastructure across hundreds of miles of remote public land. Nevada Energy then applied to recover its construction costs through customer billing. The PUC approved a rate increase of $4 per month for Southern Nevada customers specifically tied to GreenLink West construction, on top of a statewide peak usage charge that pushes most bills higher still. Southern Nevada customers are on the hook for roughly 70% of total project costs. It is hard not to notice that Las Vegas households are financing a grid upgrade largely built to power the data centers clustered around Reno, 400 miles north. GreenLink West is actively under construction. Towers are rising along US 95 north of Las Vegas, 180-foot steel H-poles erected by enormous cranes, marching north through the Mojave. The Sagebrush substation is rising in Amargosa Valley. Fort Churchill substation near Yerington, when complete, will be among the largest electrical substations in the world. The line is targeted to be in service by May 2027. It hasn't been clean. A 17-mile segment near Beatty ran into conflict with the Nevada Test and Training Range, which is the Air Force's primary flight corridor, handling 25,000 missions a year. Towers approached heights that military aircraft fly at during low-level operations. Months of negotiations with the FAA and Department of Defense followed before lighting requirements were agreed on and construction resumed. Environmental groups filed a lawsuit in May 2025, arguing the BLM's environmental review violated federal law. They warn that the line is the first permanent cut through some of the last intact wildland in the lower 48, and that over 100,000 acres of solar applications along the route are waiting for the wire before breaking ground. GreenLink North has fared worse. The northern leg would parallel Highway 50 through protected sage-grouse habitat. The BLM sided with conservation protesters on 4 separate grounds and sent its own Nevada office back to redo portions of the environmental review. A supplemental EIS is expected in 2026. Federal approval has been pushed back twice. Construction is still scheduled to begin in January 2027 with completion in late 2028, but that schedule has very little margin left. There is an irony at the center of all of it. GreenLink was conceived and sold as clean energy infrastructure, and it will carry renewable power, but it will carry whatever is on the grid, and the data center demand driving the project is expected to increase Nevada's total electricity consumption so sharply that fossil fuel generation isn't being decommissioned to accommodate the new load. It is being kept running. Nevada has more solar potential than it knows what to do with. What it is building right now is the wire to finally use it, and the bill is landing on the doorsteps of people who will benefit least from what gets built. Nevada is building infrastructure at a scale it has never attempted before. But of all the projects on this list, 2 stand apart, not because of their size, but because of what they mean to the people who depend on them every day. One will carry passengers at 200 miles an hour, the other will carry water, and one of them is a matter of basic survival. For years, America has debated the merits of high-speed rail. They even started one and poured over $100 billion into it. But the California high-speed rail has failed to launch, and its future hangs in the balance. Meanwhile, the Las Vegas to California corridor sits as one of the busiest travel routes in the entire country. More than 50 million Americans make this trip every year, and 85% of them do it by car, sitting on Interstate 15 for 4 hours each way, in traffic that regularly backs up for miles in both directions. It is one of the 6th most dangerous interstates in the country, and one of the most congested, and for generations, there has been no serious alternative to it. Brightline West is that alternative. The 218-mile all-electric line will run almost entirely in the median of Interstate 15, connecting Las Vegas to Rancho Cucamonga on the eastern edge of Los Angeles, where passengers connect to Metrolink for the final stretch downtown. Trains hit 200 miles per hour. The trip takes 2 hours. That is less than half the time currently spent in a car on the same road. These are not future trains. Siemens Mobility is building the American Pioneer 220 fleet right now, the first 2 train sets being assembled at a Siemens facility in Germany, with the remaining 8 to follow at a new factory under construction in Horseheads, New York. Each train carries over 400 passengers. Every component meets Buy America manufacturing standards, with traction systems and bogies built in Sacramento. Brightline already runs the only privately owned intercity passenger rail service in the United States, operating daily between Miami and Orlando. That operation proved the model works. In December 2023, the federal government agreed, awarding Brightline West a $3 billion grant, the largest single rail grant in the history of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Groundbreaking came on April 22, 2024. At the ceremony, officials said the line would be ready for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. However, that timeline is now out of the window with the system nowhere near completion. The service is now expected to begin in late 2029. But the bigger story than the schedule slip is what has happened to the cost. When the project was first announced, the budget was around $8 billion. By groundbreaking, it had grown to $12 billion. By late 2025, updated disclosure documents put the figure at $16 billion. Then, in January 2026, the total was revised again to $21.5 billion, nearly triple the original estimate in just 2 years. Construction market inflation, labor costs, and the complexity of engineering a high-speed corridor through the California desert have all taken their share. Brightline's executive director told the press that he remained confident the capital could be assembled. The bond market has been less convinced, with Brightline's existing bonds losing value as the financing picture grew less certain. The funding stack as it stands today is still incomplete. A $3 billion federal grant is locked. Brightline has sold $2.5 billion in private activity bonds, and in October 2025, the company applied for a $6 billion federal loan through the Railroad Rehabilitation and Improvement Financing Program. However, that loan has not been approved yet. Meanwhile, a $4 billion commercial banking package is being negotiated in parallel. The company has committed to raising $400 million in new equity by the end of March 2026 to keep construction moving while the larger picture resolves. On the ground in Las Vegas, progress is visible. The station parking garage just south of the Strip is nearly complete. Surveying along the entire 218-mile route is finished. The vehicle maintenance facility in Sloan, Nevada is being prepared. 4 of 9 major construction contracts have been signed. Heavy civil work, the grading, bridge piers, and embankment construction that constitutes the real backbone of the project is expected to begin in the coming months once the financing closes. Brightline projects, the line will capture about 20% of annual corridor traffic once open, serving around 11 million passengers a year. Whether the finances hold together long enough to put trains on that track is the only question left to answer. The road they would replace already has the answer to what happens if they don't. But even Brightline, at $21 billion, is not the project on this list that will matter most to the people of Nevada. That distinction belongs to something far less visible. No guitar hotel rising into the sky, no baseball stadium, no bullet train. Just a pipe running under the desert floor, carrying the one thing Las Vegas cannot survive without. Every city needs water to build and to grow. Las Vegas has both happening at once, and the source that makes it possible is under serious strain. Lake Mead sits 25 miles from the Strip. It is the largest reservoir in the United States, and it supplies roughly 90% of southern Nevada's drinking water. Since 2000, its elevation has dropped approximately 160 feet. As of early 2026, the lake is in a federally declared shortage condition, and the 7-state agreement that has governed how the Colorado River's water gets divided expires at the end of this year. Negotiations on a replacement have collapsed more than once. The river has been over-allocated since 1922. The drought compounding it is the worst in 1,200 years. Southern Nevada has a more immediate problem on top of all of that. There is a single large-diameter pipeline built in the 1990s called the South Valley Lateral. It runs from Lake Mead south into Henderson and the lower Las Vegas Valley. It was built before most of the area it now serves even existed, before the master plan communities, before the sprawl pushed the city limits miles past where the planners of the 1990s imagined they would go. Today, that one pipe carries 40% of the entire region's drinking water to nearly 1 million people, and it has no backup whatsoever. In 2017, it had to be shut down for emergency repairs. The region scrambled to reroute supply and managed to keep water flowing, but the engineers who ran those numbers know exactly how close the margin was. A longer outage or a failure somewhere harder to isolate, and large sections of Henderson go dry. The Southern Nevada Water Authority has been designing the solution since 2019. The Horizon Lateral Program is a parallel delivery system, a new pipeline running roughly 40 miles from existing Lake Mead intakes down through the Southern Valley, wide enough to drive a pickup truck through, capable of moving 375 million gallons of water a day. The whole program runs between $2 and $2.7 billion, funded entirely through local infrastructure charges and the connection fees that developers pay when they build, which means the construction boom across the rest of this list is, in a real sense, helping pay for its own water security. The route took an act of Congress. The most direct path goes beneath Sloan Canyon, a federally protected conservation area south of the city. A bill authorizing the tunnel cleared the U.S. Senate unanimously on February 26th, 2 weeks ago, and is now on the president's desk. Going around Sloan Canyon through the middle of Henderson would have added $200 million and years of road disruption. As part of the deal, the conservation area itself gets expanded by more than 9,000 acres. A joint venture between Granite Construction and Country Construction picked up the first 2 Phase 1 contracts in mid-2025, the Rice Pumping Station and the Paradise Hills Pumping Station, and main construction is expected to begin in early 2027, with the system online by 2030. When it is finished, if that 1990s pipe ever goes down again, water keeps moving. That is the whole promise of the project. Not more water, just a guarantee that the water already allocated never stops reaching the people who depend on it. That distinction matters because the Horizon Lateral cannot fix the larger problem. It moves existing water more reliably. It does not conjure new water from a river that has less of it every year. Southern Nevada has spent 2 decades trying to close that gap through conservation, and the results are genuinely remarkable. The region has cut its total Colorado River consumption by more than 30% since 2002, while adding nearly 1 million residents. The mechanism that makes that possible is the Las Vegas Wash, a 12-mile engineered channel that carries treated wastewater back into Lake Mead daily, generating return flow credits that allow the region to effectively reuse what it draws. A state law that took effect this year bans irrigating decorative grass anywhere in the valley with Colorado River water, medians, parking lots, traffic roundabouts, stripping millions of square feet of turf from the landscape for good. The frontier is further out and less certain. San Diego County's Water Authority approved a preliminary agreement just last week to potentially sell portions of its Colorado River allocation to Nevada and Arizona, backed by surplus capacity from the Carlsbad desalination plant, the largest in the Western Hemisphere. The The volumes being discussed are modest, and the deal still needs approval from multiple agencies before a single drop moves. But if it holds, it would mark the first interstate transfer of desalination-backed water in American history, a new model for how the driest states in the country keep growing in a drying world. Las Vegas has been building toward that future for a long time. The Horizon Lateral is the piece that buys the time to get there. Do you think Nevada will finally find an alternative for Lake Mead? And do you think the United States will finally have its first high-speed rail by 2029? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, check out our compilation on America's biggest megaprojects under construction in 2026. Keep following SIGNUM for more megaproject documentaries from around the globe.